Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take a fascinating subject, wade through the information, and pull out the really interesting stuff for you.
Hope so.
Today we're throwing ourselves into the very fast-paced and surprisingly strategic world of handball.
Yeah, it's a great one. Think of it as this high-energy collision,
Wait.
like between soccer and basketball almost.
Right. How so?
Well, you've got the goals, the field setup. It kind of hints at soccer, doesn't
Yeah.
it? But then the quick passes, the dribbling, that definitely brings basketball to mind. It's a blend that creates something, well, really unique on the court.
Absolutely. And what might surprise you, listening, is just how widespread this sport actually is, globally.
Oh, yeah, big time.
We're talking millions of players
Yeah.
across 5 continents. It's a much bigger deal in many parts of the world than folks maybe realize.
Definitely, especially outside the U.S.
So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack exactly how this game is played, who the key players are, and why it holds such a significant place in certain cultures.
Sounds good. Where should we start?
Okay, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What does a handball match actually look like, the court and all that?
Okay, so the action unfolds on a rectangular court. It's 40 meters long by 20 meters wide.
40 by 20. Got it.
Yeah. Imagine like a soccer field, but smaller and indoors. There's a clear central playing area.
Right.
And at each end, there's a semicircular goal area. It's marked by a solid line 6 meters out from the goal.
6 meters. That sounds important.
It is. It's a crucial zone because, well, with one key exception, only the goalkeeper is allowed inside it.
And that exception is?
The goalkeeper, yep.
Yeah.
They basically own that 6-meter area.
Okay.
If a regular court player steps into it while they're attacking, it's generally a foul against their team, a turnover.
Makes sense. What other lines are there?
Then you've got another semicircular dashed line. That's the free throw line. It's 9 meters away from the goal.
9 meters, okay.
And finally, the 7-meter line, that's where penalty shots, or 7-meter throws, as they're called, take place.
The penalty spot equivalent.
Exactly. And the goals themselves, they're a standard size. 2 meters high and 3 meters wide, with a net, obviously, to catch those shots.
Right, so the aim is clear. Throw the ball into that net. How long do teams get to do that?
A regulation match is an hour long. It's split into 2 30-minute halves.
30 minutes each way. Is there a break?
Yep, halftime break in between. And if the score's tied at the end of the hour,
Overtime.
you got it. They go into overtime, which is 2 5-minute periods.
Okay. What if it's still tied?
Well, if it's still anyone's game after that, there can even be a second overtime. 2 more 5-minute periods.
Wow. And if that doesn't settle it?
Then they often resort to 7-meter throws to decide the winner. It's a bit like a penalty shootout in soccer, really.
Makes sense. Stressful.
Yeah.
Now, the ball itself can't be just any old round thing, can it?
Definitely not. Handball balls are typically made of leather or a synthetic material.
Okay.
They have to be spherical, obviously, and designed to be grippy, not too slick.
Grippy makes sense with all the throwing.
Exactly. And interestingly, the size and weight of the ball actually differ between men's and women's competitions.
Oh, really? How so?
Men use a larger and heavier ball. Also, some balls are designed specifically for use with resin.
Ah, resin, that sticky stuff you see players using.
That's the one. It really helps with grip, especially during those fast-paced movements. Gives players much better control for passing and shooting.
I can imagine. And speaking of players, how many are on a team?
Each team has 7 on the court at any one time. That's 6 court players and 1 goalkeeper.
6 plus the goalie.
Yep. And they also have substitutes on the bench. In handball, substitutions are unlimited, and they can happen pretty much any time during the game on the fly.
Unlimited subs keeps things fresh. And fast-paced, I bet.
Totally.
So we know the goalie has that special 6-meter zone. Are the other players restricted in how they move with the ball?
Yes, definitely. Once a player has the ball, they can take a maximum of 3 steps without dribbling.
Only 3 steps.
Only 3. They also can't hold on to the ball for more than 3 seconds without either dribbling, passing it to a teammate, or taking a shot.
3 steps, 3 seconds. Keeps the play flowing, doesn't it?
Exactly. And just like in basketball, you can't dribble the ball, stop, pick it up, and then start dribbling again. That's a double dribble. It's a turnover.
Standard stuff there. What about restarts? When the ball goes out or after a goal, how does it get going again?
Okay, there are a few different types of throws to restart play. The game itself begins with a throw-off from the center line.
End line, okay.
After a goal is scored, the team that just conceded the goal restarts play with another throw-off, again from the center. Same thing happens after halftime.
Gotcha. What if it goes out of bounds?
If the ball goes out over the sideline, the team that didn't touch it last gets a throw-in from the spot where the ball crossed the line.
Like a throw-in in soccer, but with hands.
Pretty much. Then you have free throws. These are awarded for minor rule violations like fouls or incorrect procedure. The throw is taken from where the foul happened or just outside the 9-meter line if it was closer.
Okay. Any others?
Yeah, if the referees can't clearly tell who should have possession, maybe after simultaneous rule breaks, they might do a referee throw. They just toss the ball up between two opposing players.
Like a jump ball.
Kinda, yeah. Then there's the big one, the 7-meter throw. That's like a penalty shot, awarded when a clear scoring opportunity is illegally prevented by the defense.
Right, the defender fouls the attacker who's about to score.
Exactly. And finally, there's a goal throw. This happens when the ball goes out over the end line, last touched by the goalkeeper or an attacking player. The goalie then restarts play by throwing the ball back into play from within their own goal area.
Okay, quite a few ways to get things moving again.
Yeah.
What are some common fouls players need to avoid? Seems like a physical game.
It can be very physical. One of the main things referees watch for is endangering an opponent any play that puts another player at unnecessary risk.
Makes sense. Safety first.
Absolutely. Illegal contact is another big one. Things like holding, pushing, or hitting an opponent who isn't actually in possession of the ball, that's a foul.
Right.
And as we mentioned before, for court players, stepping into the goalkeeper's 6-meter zone is a violation if you're attacking. Defensively, you can be in there. Also, players can't pull, hit, or punch the ball out of an opponent's hands. You have to play the ball cleanly.
Okay. And if players keep breaking these rules, what happens then? Just a free throw against them?
Well, it starts with that, but handball has a system of progressive punishments if fouls keep happening or are serious.
Ah, okay. Like cards.
Exactly. The first level is usually a warning, indicated by the referee showing a yellow card. A player can only get 1 yellow card per match, and the team as a whole has a limit too, usually 3.
So you can't just keep getting warnings.
No. For more serious fouls, or if a player keeps offending after a warning, they can receive a 2-minute suspension.
2 minutes off the court.
Yep. The player has to leave the court, and their team plays shorthanded, 1 player down, for those 2 minutes.
That must hurt.
It really can. Then you have the red card. That signifies a disqualification. It's often given if a player gets their 3rd 2-minute suspension, or for a particularly dangerous or unsportsmanlike foul. The player's out for the rest of the game, but the team can replace them after the 2-minute penalty associated with the red card expires.
Okay, so the team isn't permanently short.
Not usually with a standard red card. However, in very extreme cases, like actual assault or really violent conduct, a player can be given an exclusion. That means they're out, and their team has to play 1 player short for the entire remainder of the match. That's rare, though.
Wow. Okay, so definite consequences. Keeps everyone on their toes, I guess.
It certainly tries to.
So we've got a good handle now on the basics, the rules, the flow. Let's talk about the people out there. What kind of athletes really excel in handball?
You see a real mix, actually. Different positions demand different skills and physiques. Let's start with the goalkeeper.
Okay, the one in the hot seat.
Definitely. Agility and incredibly fast reflexes are absolutely paramount. They need to make split-second decisions.
Facing hard shots from close range, right?
Exactly. Some shots come in incredibly fast and from just outside that 6-meter line. So mental toughness is also key. You can't dwell on letting a goal in.
Is height a big advantage?
It can be helpful, yeah, covering more of the goal. But it's not the be-all and end-all. Strong legs for quick movements, core strength, good stamina, those are really important too.
So it's not just about being a big body blocking the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Much more dynamic.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of technique involved. What about the outfield players, then?
Right. Let's talk about the backcourt players, first the left and right backs.
Okay. These players are generally tall and agile, good all-around athletes. Upper body strength is pretty important, both for balance when shooting under pressure and for generating power in their throws.
They need a strong arm, I imagine.
Definitely. A strong arm and a fast shot are crucial. Versatility is also a big, plus being able to shoot, pass, and defend effectively.
And I heard something about left-handed players.
Ah, yes, that's an interesting tactical point. Especially at the higher levels, having a left-handed player playing in the right back position is a significant advantage.
Why is that?
It opens up different shooting angles towards the goal, angles that right-handed players in that position wouldn't naturally have. It can be tougher for goalkeepers to read and save those shots.
That makes sense, changing the geometry of the attack.
Hmm.
Clever. What about the player in the middle back position? The center back, often called the playmaker, right?
Exactly. The center back or playmaker, they need, well, exceptional ball handling skills, a really deep understanding of the game's flow, and great vision spotting openings, setting up passes for teammates.
So they're running the offense.
Pretty much, yeah. They're often the ones dictating the plays, calling the shots tactically on offense. You might notice that maybe size and raw strength are a little less crucial for this position compared to the other backs.
More about the brain than the brawn.
Traditionally, yes, but there's an interesting trend now where center backs are becoming more of a direct scoring threat themselves, not just facilitators. The role is evolving.
The game's always changing.
Hmm.
Okay, what about the players on the sides, the wingers?
Wingers are your speed demons. They need to be really fast, agile, and have great jumping ability, often shooting while leaping into the goal area.
From tight angles, too.
Very tight angles. They also need fantastic technique and ball control to receive passes, often in tight spaces near the sideline, and then score efficiently from those very sharp angles. It takes real skill, real precision.
Definitely sounds like a specialist role.
Yeah.
And then there's the pivot, that player who's always right in the middle of the defense, near the goal line.
That's the one. The pivot, sometimes called the line player, or often a defensive specialist when their team is defending.
What's their main job?
Offensively, they're typically tall and strong. Their primary role is to fight for and control space right along that 6-meter line. They try to disrupt the defense, create openings for the backcourt shooters by setting screens, or get into position to receive a pass and take a quick shot themselves.
So less about speed, more about strength and positioning.
Exactly. They might not need the blistering speed of a winger or loads of fancy dribbling moves, but they need immense strength, perfect timing for their movements and for setting those blocks or screens, and the ability to shoot accurately from very close range, often while being heavily marked by defenders. Precision over power sometimes.
And defensively.
On defense, many pivots become key figures in the center of the defensive line, using their size and strength to block shots and control that critical area in front of the goal.
So each position really demands a unique blend of skills. But you mentioned things are evolving. Is it getting less rigid, these positions?
That's a really good point. There's definitely a growing trend towards players being more versatile, less strictly defined by just one position.
Interesting. Like hybrid players.
Yeah, exactly. You're seeing more players who can comfortably slot into multiple roles and be effective. Maybe a back who can also play pivot or a winger who can cut inside. It gives teams way more tactical flexibility, makes their attacks harder to predict and defend against.
Fascinating to see that evolution. So, okay, we have these players, these roles. What kind of strategies and tactics do teams actually use on court? How do they set up?
Well, one of the most fundamental offensive structures you'll see is often called the standard offense, or sometimes referred to as a 5-1.
5-1. What does that mean?
It means you have 5 outfield players generally positioned further out, maybe around the 9 to 12-meter area, facing the goal, and then you have one pivot player operating much closer to the 6-meter line, often with their back to the goal, trying to create space.
So 5 out, 1 in close.
Exactly. That's a really common starting point for a lot of offensive plays.
And how might teams vary that? What other setups are common?
Another frequently used tactic is the 2-pivot system. So that would be 4 players out in the backcourt and 2 pivot players working near the goal line.
4 out, 2 ins. How do they achieve that? Bring on another pivot.
Sometimes, yeah. They might achieve it just by having a winger move into that second pivot spot temporarily during the play. Or they could substitute a backcourt player off and bring on a dedicated second pivot player.
Why would they do that? More pressure inside.
Exactly. It puts more pressure on the defense right in front of the goal. Teams might also do this, especially if they decide to pull their own goalkeeper off the court.
Take the goalie out. Really?
Yeah, and bring on an extra attacker. It gives them a numerical advantage, 7 attackers against 6 defenders. It can really increase the tempo, create overload situations, and sometimes force the defense into a more passive 6-0 formation, which we can talk about.
Interesting gamble, pulling the goalie. So the offense definitely tries to dictate things. What about defense? I've heard that pure man-to-man defense, like you see across the whole court in basketball sometimes, isn't that common in handball? Why not?
That's true. It's rare. The main reason really boils down to where the high percentage scoring chances are in handball.
Okay.
Think about basketball. A layup right under the hoop is a super high percentage shot, right?
Sure.
In handball, pretty much the entire 6-meter line, except maybe the very extreme corners where the wingers shoot from those sharp angles, offers a similarly high probability of scoring.
Because you're so close to the goal.
Exactly. So if a defender gets beaten one-on-one in a pure man-to-man system, and the attacker gets free anywhere along that 6-meter line, even if help defense tries to come, the attacker still has a very, very good chance of scoring. The angles are just too good that close in.
Unlike basketball, where help defense can often cut off the drive more effectively.
Right. In handball, the attackers are more spread out along that line, making it much harder for help defenders to get there in time and be effective without leaving someone else wide open. So pure man-to-man all over is usually too risky.
That makes perfect sense when you visualize the court. So what defensive formations do teams use then?
Defensive setups are usually described by this numerical system. It tells you how many defenders are positioned deep, close to the 6-meter line, and how many are positioned further out, maybe around the 9-meter free throw line, putting pressure on the backcourt players.
Okay, like numbers.
Yeah. The most basic and widely used is the 6-0 defense.
6-0, so all 6 defenders deep.
Pretty much, yeah. In its classic older form, the 6 defenders would form a relatively flat line along the 6-meter area and just move laterally with the ball, trying to block shots and prevent attackers from penetrating that line. Kind of passive?
But you said classic form. Has it changed?
Oh, definitely. The modern version of the 6-0 is much more active, much more aggressive. Defenders will actively step out from the 6-meter line towards the 9-meter line to challenge the player with the ball, put pressure on them, try to disrupt the pass or shot.
And then drove back.
Exactly. They step out, apply pressure, and then quickly retreat back towards the 6-meter line as the ball is passed. It creates this dynamic, almost wave-like movement across the defensive front.
Sounds physically demanding.
It is. It's especially common among European teams that often have tall, strong players who can effectively block shots when they stay deep, but also have the mobility to step out and pressure.
Okay, so 6-0 is the standard. What are some other common defensive strategies?
You'll often see a 5-1 defense.
5 deep, 1 out.
You got it. 5 players stay positioned along the 6-meter line, and 1 player moves out further, usually around the 9-meter line, often in the center. Their job is to harass the opponent's backcourt players, try to intercept passes, and generally disrupt the flow of the offense before it gets close.
Trying to cut off the playmaker, maybe.
Often, yeah. Or just generally making it harder to build up the attack. Then there's the even more aggressive 3-2-1 defense.
3-2-1. Getting complicated.
Yeah. 3 defenders stay deep on the 6-meter line. Then you have 2 defenders positioned a bit further out, maybe around 7 or 8 meters. And then 1-point defender way out, near the 9-meter mark or even higher.
That sounds very disruptive.
It can be. It's often very effective against teams that rely heavily on long-range jump shots from the backcourt, because you have defenders right there to contest them. But
There's always a but.
always, it can also be vulnerable. Those aggressive positions leave bigger gaps between the defensive lines, so quick passes or players making sharp cuts can break through more easily if the coordination isn't perfect.
Risk and reward. Any others?
Well, there's a 4-2 defense, 4 deep, 2 high, but that's less frequently used. And finally, teams might employ specific marking tactics. This is often similar to a 5-1, but instead of just having a general disruptive player out front, they assign that defender, or maybe even 2 defenders, to specifically shadow and guard 1 or 2 of the opponent's key offensive players wherever they go, like a box-and-1 defense in basketball.
Focusing on stopping their star player.
Exactly. True one-on-one, man-to-man defense covering the entire court, as we said, is really rare. You typically only see that as maybe a desperate measure in the last minute or 2 of a very close game when a team needs to force turnovers quickly.
It's incredible. There's so much strategic depth, isn't there? It's not just throwing the ball hard.
Not at all. It's like high-speed chess sometimes.
Okay, so for those of us listening who are getting more interested, maybe want to watch some top-level handball. What are the major competitions, and who's sort of in charge of the sport globally?
Right. The sport is governed worldwide by the International Handball Federation, usually known as the IHF.
IHF, got it.
They're the main administrative body, the controlling body, for both indoor handball and also beach handball, which is another growing version of the sport.
Okay, and what do they organize?
The IHF is responsible for organizing the most prestigious international tournaments. The big ones are the IHF World Championships. There's one for men, which has actually been held since way back in 1938.
Wow, it's a long history.
It is. And there's a World Championship for women, too, which started in 1957. They also oversee handball at the Olympic Games.
Right, handball is an Olympic sport.
Yep. Men's handball made its debut as an indoor sport in the 1972 Munich Olympics. Women's handball was added 4 years later in 1976 in Montreal.
So the World Championships and the Olympics, those are the absolute pinnacles.
Definitely. Those are the titles every player and country dreams of winning.
Are there other significant IHF competitions worth knowing about?
Absolutely. The IHF also runs world championships for younger age groups. The Youth and Junior World Championships. There's the IHF Beach Handball World Championships, as I mentioned, and also the IHF Club World Championship, which brings together the champion club teams from different continents, kind of like FIFA's Club World Cup in soccer.
Okay, so competitions at all levels.
Yeah. And besides the global IHF, there are also continental federations that manage the sport in their specific regions. You know, Africa, Asia, Europe, North and Central America, Oceania, South America.
So it's well organized globally.
Very. In total, the IHF has something like 210 member national federations. They even run a special competition called the IHF Trophy, which is specifically designed to help develop handball in emerging nations, giving them more international playing experience.
That's great to see focusing on growth as well.
Mm.
Now, to really bring the sport to life, can you talk about some of the legends, the famous players, the dominant teams that people might recognize or should know about?
Certainly. When you talk about the all-time greats, a name that always comes up is Mikkel Hansen from Denmark.
Hansen, okay.
He's been named the IHF World Player of the Year an incredible 3 times.
Yeah.
He's won Olympic gold, the World Championship, the European Championship, basically everything. A phenomenal left back.
Wow. 3-time world player. Who else?
Then there's Nicolas Karabatic of France, another giant of the game, also a 3-time World Player of the Year. He's got multiple Olympic golds, multiple world titles, multiple European titles with France. Just immense success over a long career. A true icon.
France and Denmark seem like powerhouses.
Definitely historically strong, yes. Thinking of other positions, on the wing, you have exciting players like Alex Gomez from Spain.
Oh.
Super fast right winger, known for his speed and attack. He also won a Youth World Cup.
Speed demons, you called them earlier.
Yeah. For the women, Duda Amorim from Brazil is a standout. Huge success at the Pan American Games, and she was a key part of the Brazil team that sensationally won the World Championship in 2013, widely recognized as one of the best female players.
Amazing. Any defensive standouts?
Yeah.
Like goalkeepers?
Yeah, Jim Gottfridsson from Sweden. He's known as a really key central defender, great tactical mind, multiple Olympic appearances. And for goalkeepers, Amandine Lenaud from France. She was outstanding for many years, won the World Cup and European Championship with France, and she's also done a lot to promote youth handball, which is great.
Any non-European stars to highlight?
Ahmed Elamar from Egypt is a huge name, really a leading figure in African handball, tons of success continentally, and represented Egypt at multiple world championships, a real talisman for them.
Good to get that global perspective.
Yeah.
Anyone more recent making waves?
Oh, yeah, loads. Sander Sagosen from Norway is incredible. Exceptional court vision, amazing attacking ability, scores tons of goals. Niklas Ekberg from Sweden, another top player, very versatile scorer, Olympic silver medalist. The list goes on, really. Talent keeps emerging.
Some real giants of the game there.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned France and Denmark. Are they the historically dominant teams?
France, particularly in the men's game, had an unbelievable period of dominance, winning pretty much everything for a number of years. They're always contenders. Denmark, too, consistently produces top teams and players. And it's worth noting, the men's handball league in Denmark is considered one of the absolute strongest and most competitive leagues in Europe. It attracts top international stars.
So a real hotbed for the sport.
Absolutely.
It's clear there's this rich history, incredible athletes. But you also mentioned handball has a real cultural impact in certain places, right?
Yeah.
It's more than just a game.
It really is, especially in Europe. Handball has incredibly deep roots and enjoys immense popularity in Scandinavia, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, but also in the Balkans, Germany, France, Spain.
So big across Europe.
Huge. In many of those countries, it's often the second most popular team sport right after soccer. It draws big crowds, gets major media attention.
But not so much elsewhere, like the U.S.
Yeah, it's true that in other parts of the world, like the United States, handball definitely has a much lower profile. It's just not as widely known or played.
A real contrast.
It is. But despite that regional disparity, remember those IHF stats? Over 200 member federations, millions of registered players worldwide. So it still has a significant global reach, even if it's more concentrated in certain areas.
And you mentioned Denmark earlier. I read some interesting things about how handball connects with Danish culture specifically. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, it's fascinating. In Denmark, handball really seems to resonate deeply with some core cultural values.
Like what?
Well, the whole nature of the sport, fast-paced, very team-oriented, requiring quick passing, coordinated movement, everyone playing their part, it really reflects a cultural emphasis on collaboration, on working
That
together.
sense of togetherness.
Exactly. That sense of togetherness, fellesskap, in Danish, is a big deal. It aligns with broader social values. And of course, success on the international stage is a huge source of national pride.
I bet.
And locally, the shared experience of supporting your town's handball team, going to matches, it fosters a really strong sense of community and social connection. It's seen as contributing to the overall quality of life.
Is it big with kids there?
Hugely. There's a massive emphasis on getting children involved in handball from a young age, not just for the athletics, but specifically to learn about teamwork, build friendships. It's part of the social fabric.
So even for tourists, catching a game could be a real cultural experience.
Definitely. Attending a handball match, feeling that local atmosphere, the passion, it's often suggested as a way to tap into a key aspect of Danish culture.
Interesting. I also read something about a shift in who played it in Denmark.
Yeah, that's quite interesting too. Historically, maybe way back, it had more associations with sort of upper class circles and cities, but after some structural reforms, particularly in the 1970s, it became much more of a grassroots phenomenon, really strong in smaller towns and local communities, partly just because those smaller communities often had the indoor sports halls needed to play it year-round.
So it became more embedded locally.
Exactly. Very much a sport of towns and local clubs now.
That's a fascinating insight, how a sport can become so intertwined with a nation's identity and social life. Okay, just before we wrap up, let's briefly touch on the history. Where did this game actually come from?
Sure. The origins of handball, or games very similar to it, can be traced back to the late 19th century, primarily in Scandinavia and Germany.
And it was played outdoors first.
Yeah, initially it was mostly played outdoors on larger fields, and it was known as field handball. Indoor handball, the version we mostly see today, developed a bit later and gradually became more popular.
Were they seen as separate sports for a while?
They were. In fact, from 1938 up until 1966, the IHF actually organized separate world championships for both field handball and indoor handball.
No kidding. So what happened to field handball?
It basically faded away at the elite level. After 1967, only indoor handball championships have been contested internationally. Field handball even made one single appearance at the Olympics back in 1936 in Berlin.
Just what?
Just once for field handball. Indoor handball, as we said, made its proper Olympic debut for men in Munich in '72 and for women in Montreal in '76.
And the game itself has changed a lot since those early days, I assume.
Oh, immensely. Modern handball is incredibly dynamic, very physically demanding compared to its origins. The speed, the complexity of the tactics, the sheer athleticism required from players today, it's evolved significantly from those earlier, maybe more rudimentary forms.
It certainly sounds like it. Well, this has been an absolutely eye-opening journey into the world of handball.
Glad you think so.
We've covered so much ground, from the basic rules and the flow of the game to the different player roles, the strategies involved, the big competitions, the legends of the sport, its cultural importance, and how it all developed.
It really is a compelling sport, isn't it? That blend of athleticism, sharp thinking, and crucial teamwork. It's uniquely engaging, I think. And you can see why it has such a passionate following in many parts of the world.
Absolutely. So for you listening, maybe take a moment to appreciate that fascinating mix, the individual brilliance you need, but also that seamless team coordination that makes handball so captivating to watch. And think about those deep cultural roots it has in so many places.
Yeah, hopefully we've sparked some curiosity.
Maybe enough to look up if there are any handball clubs near you, or at least to check out some highlights from the next World Championships or Olympics. You might just discover a new sporting passion.
You never know.